All right, Mr. Rossi. Now to Michelle Dupler, and Mr. Rossi, you will answer this question first.
Okay. If you were to vote to increase spending for nuclear waste cleanup at Hanford, as the Washington State Department of Ecology has suggested may be necessary to meet targets in a 5-year plan, would you cut other parts of the federal budget to avoid increasing overall federal spending? And if so, what would you cut?
We're going to have to cut, make reductions in this budget. As a state senator, I was chairman of the Senate Ways and Means Committee during the largest dollar deficit in state history. I worked across party lines to balance the biggest deficit in state history without raising taxes. And what we did was we went line by line by line through the budget. That's exactly what we're going to have to do. There are things, I've done it here in the state of Washington, and I've done it in a bipartisan fashion. It doesn't look like there's a lot of bipartisan effort going on in Washington, D.C. So there are a number of things that you can do, that just sitting here that you can see that could be done. There are, and the stimulus. There's $275 billion that's available sitting there. Why should the federal employees have a better deal than the people who are footing the bill? How about no raises for a year, and you're talking about $30 billion? Reducing the federal workforce back to pre-Obama levels by only hiring back one person for every 2 that leave. You don't have to fire anybody. That's $35 billion. Having not written the federal budget before, but written the state budget, I actually understand you can make reductions. My framework in Olympia, though, when I wrote the budget, was I was not going to raise taxes, but I was going to do everything I could to protect the most vulnerable people in society, which is why I received the first annual Defender of Liberty Award from the Evergreen Freedom Foundation for being the architect of the most fiscally conservative budget ever written in our state. Received 6 different awards from the developmentally disabled community for protecting the funding for people in the developmentally disabled community. And also the Senior Star Award from AARP for protecting funding for seniors in nursing homes. You can be fiscally conservative and still have a social conscience. Those things are not mutually exclusive. And create room in the budget for the things that you're talking about with the cleanup at Hanford.
You're out of time. Senator Murray.
Well, what I didn't hear in all of that was an answer to your question about Hanford Nuclear Reservation that is in our state. I have to tell you, my grandfather came here in 1916, and my father was in the Tri-Cities when Hanford Nuclear Reservation was built. And I know that we have a moral and a legal obligation in this country to clean up the nuclear waste that is seeping in the groundwater towards the Columbia River today, millions of gallons. I have fought Republican presidents and Democratic presidents and numerous secretaries of energy to make sure that we meet that obligation. Today, we do have tremendous challenges with our budget, and the president has told us that he is going to reduce our budgets overall by 5% next year, and we have to hold it to that. But I have told them that the Hanford Nuclear Reservation is part of our defense. He has told us we're not going to be cutting defense, and I want to make sure that if that's the case, Hanford Nuclear Reservation does not get cut. We cannot afford to have that waste seeping towards the river. Now, I heard in Mr. Rossi's answer that he was going to repeal the stimulus money. Maybe he doesn't know this, but there are almost 3,000 people employed by that stimulus money cleaning up that waste at Hanford Nuclear Reservation right now. He just said he'd give them a pink slip and continue to let that waste go towards the river.
Mr. Rossi, a 30-second rebuttal.
What Senator Murray isn't telling you, though, is that when President Obama was a candidate, he said that he would shut down Yucca Mountain in Nevada, where the nuclear waste is supposed to go. We're building a vitrification plant in Tri-Cities and turning the radioactive sludge into glass blocks. It needs to go to Yucca Mountain. She remained silent when that happened. 3 nuclear regulatory commissioners came through that said they wouldn't stop the president from shutting down Yucca. She remained silent once again. And our nuclear waste is going to be all dressed up with nowhere to go. Quite frankly, we have to get nuclear waste out of Washington State. But Senator Harry Reid has made that a platform in his campaign, and it seems like Senator Murray is more concerned about Harry Reid's re-election than getting nuclear waste out of the state of Washington.
We're over. Senator Murray?
Well, I didn't hear an answer to the question, and that's about the priority of making sure that we clean up Hanford. It is one of the most important things I do. I take it on with every Democratic and Republican president alike, and they know it. Mr. Rossi's wrong. I have fought to make sure that Yucca Mountain does stay on the nuclear waste site, because it is important that we have a place to send this nuclear waste in the future. But right now, the most serious threat to Hanford is a budget cut that would mean we can't stop that waste from going towards the river.
Our next question comes to us from Dan in Otis Orchards, who writes, Given
Hi,
that
my name is Ryan. I'm a senior at
Given
Eastern
that it
Washington
is-
University.
Given that it seems that Social Security and other entitlement programs are underfunded, how would you recommend these issues be resolved for those already retired and for those eligible to retire in the next 20 years? Senator Murray?
Well, thank you for that question. Social Security and Medicare are two of the most important programs we have for seniors and for many disabled in this country. We know from the meltdown on the markets and what happened to many people that making sure that Social Security is never privatized is absolutely critical. And I have fought hard against the previous administration who did try to privatize it. Medicare is an extremely important program, and within the health care reform that Mr. Rossi wants to repeal, we made some important provisions in that will now extend the life of Medicare, making sure that we cut fraud and abuse, making sure that our senior citizens' donut hole is filled, is part of the health care bill that he wants to repeal. We need to make sure that those programs are there for the future. We need to do it within the budget and challenges that we have today. The President has a commission that is going to make recommendations to us by the end of this year, and everything is on the table, and we have to be responsible and look at every area of our budget. But I know, because my own parents limped to Medicare because my dad had multiple sclerosis and my mom had heart problems, and I know how important it was that Medicare was there for them when they turned 65. I want to make sure it's there for you too. But in order to do that, we have to make some very tough decisions in the future, and you can count on me with the value of making sure our parents are taken care of. We'll be there to make sure we make those decisions good for you.
All right, Mr. Rossi?
We have to make sure that we come through with what we promised to seniors. But unfortunately, Senator Murray and others in D.C. have used the Social Security as a piggy bank. There is no trust fund. It's all just IOUs. And the biggest threat is going to be the debt that Senator Murray has helped mass for this nation. You know, right now we're borrowing money rather cheaply. When interest rates go up, and I think they will go up, you're going to talk about 80 cents on every dollar that you send back to D.C. in the form of taxes will be gone. We aren't going to be able to pay back those IOUs. And when Senator Murray was first elected, she actually voted to raise taxes on Social Security. I don't think that is the right way to go either. So I think we have what we have here is, you know, you have a senator that says one thing in Washington State and does another thing in Washington, D.C. We have to be very careful about that. You talk about Medicare. Senator Murray voted to cut Medicare by $500 billion with that health care bill. Half the seniors or half the people involved that have Medicare Advantage are going to lose Medicare Advantage because of Senator Murray's vote on that piece of legislation. And so we have some serious issues to deal with, and that is one, because we have to make sure we come through with what we promised our seniors.
Senator Murray, rebuttal?
Well, I didn't hear an answer again, but I can tell you this. If Mr. Rossi gets his way and we extend the Bush tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans, the top 2% in this country, to the tune of almost $1 trillion, there is no way that we can sustain the programs that are so important in front of us. I want to make sure that we do cut our budget. I'm a tough mom when it comes to our budget, but I want to make sure that we preserve those programs that provide stability for families in every community, and I'm going to make sure that Medicare and Social Security are there for you.
Rebuttal?
Once again, Senator Murray voted to raise taxes on Social Security, and with the health care vote, Senator Murray actually voted to actually reduce spending on Medicare by $500 billion. This is going to impair all the programs we have for seniors when it comes to health care. And I don't think her spending is going to help us preserve Social Security for the future. Things that we promised seniors that we should come through with.
Okay, our next question comes to us from Nadine Woodward, and Mr. Rossi, you will answer first.
Thanks, Robin. And staying on the subject of health care, my question is two parts, each one directed specifically to one of you. And our order works perfectly because the first part goes to you, Mr. Rossi. Republicans say they want to repeal health care reform. So what would you replace the current plan with?
Well, let's talk about the health care that Senator Murray voted for, first off. You're going to get a $695 fine if you don't buy the health care. You're talking about a $500 billion cut to Medicare to partially pay for a new entitlement when Medicare is already in trouble. You're talking about a $500 billion tax increase. And that tax increase is going to cost the Boeing company alone $150 million. So with that, you're talking about tens of thousands of jobs in the state of Washington are going to be lost or not created because of Senator Murray's 60th and deciding vote on this piece of legislation. You know, it is really a problem, this health care bill. You're losing your freedoms, you're losing your choices. And so there are solutions, there are things you can do. There are a number of things you can do. You can allow health insurance, you can allow individuals to buy a health insurance company across state lines. You could, lawsuit reform has helped reduce costs in some states. You could, health savings accounts, you become a customer again, it's your money. Allowing individuals in small groups to band together, buy a health insurance like the big boys do. I just gave you 4 ideas, not a single one costs the taxpayers a dime. It's not going to bankrupt America, it's not going to add $2 trillion to the deficit. It can all be done, there are answers here. Unfortunately, Senator Murray is marching down the wrong path. This potentially could bankrupt America and also impair Medicare as well.
Nadine?
Well, and Senator Murray, how much of the 2,600-page legislation did you actually read before voting on the plan? And
Well,
are you concerned about its costs projected to push upwards of $1 trillion?
Not only did I read it, but I helped to write it. Look, let's remember that the only group of people that healthcare in this country was working for was our health insurance companies. Every family, every business, every community was struggling with double-digit increases. I believe that you should be able to pick a health care plan that works for you and your family. And you should be able to choose your doctor if you care to. And I want to make sure that we do control costs and increase access and put the decisions of your health care back into your hands and not into insurance companies' hands. I talked to a woman here in Spokane who came into me with a stack of papers this high, and she told me that that was the correspondence that she went back and forth with her insurance company for the last year. Her husband was diagnosed with cancer, and every single procedure and every single bill that she got, she had sent to the insurance company. They refused to pay it. She had to fight back, and a correspondence that high. I believe that our health care bill will move us to a place where you have control once again, and your insurance company can't deny you coverage or discriminate against you for the coverage that you deserve. I believe that it is important that we move forward to deal with the costs. Businesses were going under, they couldn't compete, we were not competitive globally, and this plan, although not perfect, and we all have to make sure it works as we believe it is a step in the right direction that will finally give you control of your health care instead of an insurance company.
Okay, Mr. Rossi, 30 seconds.
Well, we have some serious problems with this because we were sold a plan that somehow was going to reduce costs and increase access. Well, clearly most businesses I'm talking to and individuals are saying it's a 30 to as much as an 80% increase because of this piece of legislation that passed. We were also told that we get to keep our health care. Clearly that's not the case, and Senator Murray just voted against an amendment that would have ensured that you get to keep your health care if you like it, breaking a promise. Once again, saying one thing in Washington State and doing another in Washington, D.C.
Mr. Rossi,
the question is, which Washington does she represent?
Senator Murray, you have 30 seconds.
What I just heard was the talking points from the insurance companies. Mr. Rossi wants to repeal health care reform. Tell that to the woman who just told me a few weeks ago that for the first time she can sleep at night because her daughter with cystic fibrosis won't be denied coverage for her health care. Tell that to the senior citizen who is now, because of health care reform, going to not fall into that donut hole and they'll have their prescription drugs covered. Tell that to the thousands of people who are in bankruptcy today because their insurance denied them coverage after they paid their bills.
Our next question is from Adam in Moses Lake, who sent in an email question. Adam asks, as a senator, what will you do to stop any dam removal on the Columbia and Snake Rivers? He goes on to write, This question is important to Eastern Washington as jobs rely on the low-cost hydropower and the shipping lanes they provide. Senator Murray?